So I spent the summer of 2019 in a hospital in Avon, Indiana. Specifically, I spent the summer serving in a hospital as a chaplain. One of the requirements to be a UU minister is that one spends 400 hours of service as a chaplain in a hospital setting. And this was something that honestly I put off as long as I was able to. This was something that I knew that I needed to do, something that I wanted to do, and something that I entered into without a lot of knowledge and with some deal of trepidation. It was my good fortune to be able to say at that point in my life I had not spent a lot of time in hospitals. It was an unfamiliar setting, and it was a setting I associated with badness. Right? My assumption was that most every patient in a hospital is not very happy to be in a hospital. I was not going to be on the maternity ward. The part of the hospital where I was going to be was the intensive care unit. People are there because they're sick, maybe very sick. People would be in pain, some would be facing death or actively dying. So I went into my chaplaincy experience sort of braced for the idea that I would be encountering a lot of suffering and a lot of sorrow, and that I needed to be prepared for that. And what surprised me about my time in chaplaincy is that the experience was very different. In the first place, hospitals are not just places of illness, they are also places of healing. Duh. And while not everyone and all things can be healed, doctors and nurses are mostly amazing. Amazing. And the people at the hospital I served got exceptionally good and compassionate care. But here's the other thing. What I encountered in the hospital from the patients themselves, from the people who were there for a reason, was just a tremendous amount of resiliency. My job, for the most part, was just to go into people's rooms and sit with them and be with them and talk to them if they wanted to talk. And what people talked about, more often than not, was everything that they were grateful for. They talked about little joys, they talked about big joys, they talked about family visits, they talked about friends, they told me stories about what they loved to do, about what they were looking forward to doing, they told me stories of their life. People in the hospital were, for the most part, upbeat. They were positive, and they were grateful. And this is the other thing that I remember very well that really touched me. I would typically offer to pray with the person I was visiting. Sometimes they wanted to, sometimes not. And I would ask them if they did, if there was anything special that they wanted me to pray for. And most of the time, what they said was, pray for the people around me. Would you please pray for the other people in the hospital? And so what I encountered in the hospital every day, in room after room, was gratitude. People at the hospital were good at gratitude, and what it inspired in them was compassion. Their heart was with the people around them. So the Reverend Galen Gungarich, who is the UU minister at All Souls, New York City, has written a book called The Way of Gratitude. He recommends gratitude as a foundational spiritual practice for Unitarian Universalists. And as a practice, I like to think of gratitude as a recontextualization of life's challenges in the light of joy. Say that again. Gratitude is a recontextualization of our challenges in the light of joy. Gratitude is not about pretending that negative or painful or challenging things don't happen or can't happen or won't happen. Gratitude is not a denial of reality. It is a recontextualization of reality. It is using that which is joyful, beneficial, delightful, connecting, loving, to provide meaning to the bad stuff in our life, to provide perspective and balance to the bad stuff in our life. It is remembering amidst the ugliness that, in the words of the poet Sarah Teasdale, life still has loveliness to sell. This is from the poem A Barter by Sarah Teasdale, which Reverend Gungarich includes in his book. Life has loveliness to sell, all beautiful and splendid things, blue waves whitened on a cliff, soaring fire that sways and sings, and children's faces looking up, holding wonder like a cup. Life has loveliness to sell, music like a curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit's still delight, holy thoughts that star the night. So gratitude is an intentional remembrance that life still has loveliness to sell. We can be absolutely real about the challenges we are facing while acknowledging that good is still present and powerful. And then gratitude is as a practice, gratitude is taking a moment to center that knowledge, that awareness of the power of good in an intentional way. When we get skillful about centering the good, about keeping a persistent focus on the good, the bad stuff is less overwhelming, it's less totalizing. It impacts our life without defining our life. The awareness of the good then creates space for other things amidst our pain, like hope and possibility. For people in extreme situations, people in prisons or refugee camps, people facing wars or natural disasters, this can be literally a life-saving resilience practice. For anyone, it can be a life-enhancing resilience practice. And research on gratitude consistently shows a strong correlation between practicing gratitude and reported levels of happiness. Harvard Health Publishing of Harvard Medical School said in a 2021 article, in positive psychology research, gratitude is strongly and consistently associated with greater happiness. Gratitude helps people feel more positive emotions, relish good experiences, improve their health, deal with adversity, and build strong relationships. So in the meditation group that meets Mondays through Friday at UUI, we do a gratitude meditation at least once a week to build that practice up, to exercise our gratitude muscle. It's really straightforward. It's just like what we did today. We just take some quiet time, center ourselves, say the things for which we are grateful. And people have consistently said that this is a challenging meditation, that this is not easy to do. And here are some of the challenges that they name, and maybe some of this will ring true to you as well. First of all, they say gratitude practice, like making a gratitude list. Many of you probably keep gratitude journals, right? It can feel performative. It can feel mechanical, like we're naming all of the things, but our heart is not really into it, right? We're not really feeling it. We're just going through the motions, which can certainly be true in any given instance, but here is where it's a practice. And Reverend Gingerich says, gratitude is not a feeling, it's an orientation. It's a way of being. And so it is relatively unimportant if we are feeling grateful when we practice gratitude, because the goal of the practice is not to generate a feeling. The goal is to generate a shift of awareness. And when we practice, we get better at shifting that awareness over time. And it does take time, like all practices. This was something that I found very interesting. People have experienced that the exercise of naming all of the things for which we are grateful in our lives can feel paradoxically bad, because it can feel selfish or uncaring. Because sometimes we are grateful for something abstract, like the existence of flowers, right? We're grateful that life still has loveliness to sell, but sometimes the things that come to mind are like, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. And I know that there are many people who don't have that. I'm grateful for my health, and yet there are so many who are sick. I'm grateful I took my grandkids to the movies yesterday, and that simple act contains so many compounded luxuries in a world of war and poverty. What do we even do with that? What do I do with gratitude for all the good things in my life, knowing that for any good thing I can name, there is someone who is going without? And if I am grateful for my health, am I essentially saying to everyone who is sick, I'm glad I'm not you? That doesn't seem loving or lovely. It feels callous or selfish. And so people really struggled with this, right? Can gratitude be like a form of selfishness in disguise, or at least indifference? So let's use health as our entry point into this discussion. Because the thing about health is we're all finite beings, and all of our health is contingent. Today's health is no assurance of tomorrow's health. If I am grateful for my present health, what is also true is that I have been sick before and I will be sick in the future. And so my enjoyment of my present health does not exclude me from the human condition of fragility. We are all temporarily able-bodied. When it comes to health challenges, almost all of us will get our turn. And so we turn to the Buddha. The Buddha puts this plainly in what are called the 5 remembrances, which are central to the practice of Buddhism. You can find a lovely reflection by Beth Hinkle on the 5 remembrances over on the walls of our sanctuary. You better look at it quickly because the writing show is coming down today. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out right after the service because it's fabulous. Beth writes movingly about the 5 remembrances of the Buddha, which are as follows. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. So that's a lot. The 5 remembrances are not intended to evoke pessimism, though, or despair or self-pity. Rather, they are intended to evoke gratitude and compassion in us. Understanding that I am of the nature to have ill health, that there's no way to escape this, I am grateful for the positive health that I have now, whatever that looks like. And I have compassion for the person with ill health, which will one day be me. And if the word compassion means suffering with, then this is certainly something we all suffer together. It is the human condition. And then remembering that my actions are the ground on which I stand, I may be moved to act generously and compassionately towards suffering in the world. I may do what I can do to ease that suffering that we all participate in. And offering compassion in the face of suffering is not easy. One unhelpful use of gratitude is when it is treated almost like a form of magic that we can use to cast out or block out negative things from our life. As long as we repeat the incantation that we are grateful, as long as we insist that we only acknowledge the positive. When gratitude is used to deny our vulnerability because we refuse to acknowledge it, then gratitude can shade into toxic positivity, right? And this actually mostly happens when we are telling other people to be grateful. Keep a stiff upper lip, count your blessings, look at the bright side. Almost never are these helpful things to say to someone who is in pain or suffering, right? The magic phrase, cheer up, has cured 0 cases of depression, as far as I know. And we find ourselves saying these things, and when we find ourselves saying these things, or someone is saying them to us, it is almost always because we are struggling to simply sit with the pain or sadness in the room, because it is hard to sit with pain or sadness and simply be. Just be. We want to fix things. We want to make the hurt go away. We want the person we are with, we want the people we love to be invulnerable. We want ourselves to be invulnerable. And most of the time, all we have to offer in the face of this is just our presence. Just our presence, just our compassion, just our willingness to be and to listen. And so precisely what we have to offer is our vulnerability, that thing that frightens us. And what a gratitude practice can do is give us enough built-up resilience that we are relatively more comfortable experiencing vulnerability. When we practice gratitude, we build up enough of that life-giving resilience that we can be vulnerable and we can experience vulnerability, our own and others. And then gratitude truly is a gateway to compassion. to suffer with both ourselves and others. We can be present to our own vulnerability. We can be present to one another's vulnerability. The last thing I want to talk about is gratitude and justice. Because while it is true that old age and illness and death are all part of our shared human experience, there are plenty of things that aren't shared. Things like poverty and violence, incarceration, right? Racism, sexism, homophobia, all the isms. Suffering is not distributed evenly in the world, far from it. And oftentimes people suffer unjustly, and sometimes people benefit unjustly, and what do we do with that? How do we feel grateful for the things that we have, knowing there is so much unfairness built into who has what? And so is gratitude an acceptance of injustice. And in one sense, all of life, just the fact that we are alive, is an enormous unearned gift. And we can be grateful for this gift which we did not and cannot earn. We do not need to deserve something to be grateful for it. There's no sense in which it makes sense to say, I deserve the fact that peaches taste like peaches, or that periodic vibrations of the air can be received by our brains as music. So much of life is a pure gift. But in another sense, we are urged to believe that we do for sure deserve what we have. Kind of the whole structure of our economy depends on people generally believing that, yes, for sure, we deserve the things that we have. Concepts like wages and earnings and rights are taught to us almost from the moment we draw breath. And in this culture in particular, there's a very strong connection between prosperity and virtue. The idea that we deserve what we have, and if we don't have, we don't deserve. Of course, this is a cultural mythology. We know it isn't true. There's a popular meme going around that says, maybe you manifested it. Maybe it's white privilege. Barack Obama once said, "You didn't build that," in a statement that both inspired immense fury and was manifestly true. He meant you didn't build that alone. And of course it's true. Whatever we have accomplished, we did not do it alone. Even Tom Hanks alone on that island needed Wilson the soccer ball, right? And of course, he carried with him to that deserted island not just the soccer ball, but all of the gifts of the people who had nurtured him to life in that moment. He arrived loaded down with invisible treasures, as we all do every moment of our lives. We arrive loaded down with invisible treasures because we are all the enormous beneficiaries of everything and everyone around us. And nothing about this negates the fact that we have agency in life. We play a role in bringing good things into our life. Of course we do. We are creative beings. We're productive beings. And at the same time, we can recognize that someone else also did all the things that we did, and it did not get the same result for them. And the things that we are able to do in the first place are a result of all manner of unearned and contingent benefits we have received, and some of us have received many more benefits than others. Author Brené Brown says it is gratitude for our privilege that prevents it from becoming entitlement. Here's where gratitude enters the picture. Gratitude prevents our privilege from becoming entitlement. If we think we are somehow owed the gifts we have received through some unique specialness of our own, we may feel entitled to our good fortune, and then we may feel like we are owed even more. And we may become jealous and possessive of what we have. We may feel scornful or superior to those who have not. But if we understand how contingent is our good fortune, if we are grateful for it, it may inspire then not entitlement and hoarding, but generosity. This is not about guilt. This is not to deny our own agency in our lives. Again, everyone is embedded in a matrix of unearned benefits and undeserved restrictions. We all experience overlapping layers of privilege and lack of privilege. This is just life, and no one chooses to be born into the life that they're born into. And we can recognize, as Galen Gungerich says in his book, that the matrix of rewards and constraints is systematically and massively unequal. That society is shaped by what mathematician Johann Galtung calls structural violence, and gratitude should never be a denial of reality, including the reality of injustice. But as Unitarian Universalists, then, this awareness should move us back to our core commitment to justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. What we do with our good fortune is ours to discern. We can enjoy it, share it, give it away, leverage it to make a better world, use it to fight injustice, some of these, all of these things. Gratitude is not intended to be something that further cocoons us in our privilege. It is a tool to open our hearts and activate our compassion. And so gratitude can be and should be not a participation in injustice, but a foundational practice for justice work. It leads us to compassion. It leads us to an awareness of injustice, and it calls us as Unitarian Universalists to make a difference. So I want to close with a prayer that Galen Gingerich offers to start each day with. Again, gratitude as a practice. Here's another practice. This would be used as part of like a morning meditation or a prayer practice to center ourselves in gratitude. These are the words he offers. You can find them in his book. He says, I receive the gift of this day with gratitude. I seek to accept all that is past. I seek to embrace all that is present. I seek to realize all that is possible. The clarity of truth, the joy of beauty, the satisfaction of justice, the lure of adventure, the fullness of peace. I seek to be worthy of the gift of this day. So we'll say that one more time in shorter form. I receive the gift of this day with gratitude. I seek to accept all that is past. I seek to embrace all that is present. I seek to realize all that is possible. I seek to be worthy of the gift of this day. May it be so.